I've never been a huge energy drink guy, but there's one I can't stop seeing. I know this one has crazy action sports, and everyone has some idea of who drinks this. But then there's Celsius. It feels different. It doesn't really look like an energy drink. And in the last few years, it's everywhere.
And I think the Celsius is a buyer.
What's up? I'm Gio, and I drink Celsius.
I was instrumental in Celsius.
Has anyone ever tested Celsius for methamphetamines?
Celsius Essential.
Just a decade ago, Celsius was doing so badly, it was delisted from the stock exchange. It was on the verge of bankruptcy. But the company is now worth around $18 billion and is the fastest growing brand in the energy drink market. This is a story of how branding, a fresh team, and some luck took Celsius from a little known weight loss drink in Florida to an international beverage powerhouse. It's the early 2000s, and this is what a can of Celsius looks like. Burn calories, reduce body fat, build lean muscle, and then finally they get to lasting energy. Before Celsius became what it is today, it was barely marketed as an energy drink. Instead, it was an idea by a couple from Boca Raton, Florida to break into the $36 billion functional food and beverage market. If you look at the company's website in its early years, the drink had basically the same ingredients as it does now, notably lots of caffeine and no sugar. But they didn't call it an energy drink.
Energy drinks have been with us for a long time, and Red Bull was really the pioneer in that space. And if you think about brand positioning, they were very clever with the tagline of giving you wings, but also giving you this emotional energy, this confidence. Unfortunately, they all follow each other. So that's where we get into the era that you're talking about, where some innovators started looking at other ways to position this.
And this is what Celsius chose to position itself as, a kind of magic health drink meant to fight the obesity epidemic. And very prominently, Celsius places itself as a drink that burns calories. To prove it, Celsius paid for several studies, which it still cites that tracked its supposed health benefits. Specifically, the studies assessed the drink's thermogenic properties, which are basically its ability to heat up your body and burn calories. Caffeine alone is a significant contributor to this effect. Regardless, Celsius was the first drink brand to use the word thermogenesis as a marketing tool, and sold itself as a drink that burnt calories for you. And right as they're getting started, Celsius gets a new character in its story. Carl DeSantis. He's this old billionaire who made most of his fortune selling vitamins, and he lives near the founders in Florida. One day he gets handed a case of Celsius and immediately smells profit. He quickly made huge investments in the company, and in 2008 helped take Celsius holdings public.
Here at the big board.
The company immediately dumped money into advertisements, like this one.
Celsius, the calorie-burning drink.
Burn, baby, burn, but all they were burning was cash. By 2011, the company continually reported bigger and bigger loss and stagnating revenue, and the stock tanks.
I think a lot of people who tried these functional beverages expecting to see big results in weight loss didn't find them. It just didn't look like they had really crystallized how they wanted this brand to be perceived by consumers.
Eventually, in 2011, at this point a penny stock after IPOing at $16, Celsius delisted from the NASDAQ. And conspicuously, the company makes some big changes. Seeing his investment is flopping, Carl DeSantis forces out Celsius' management. And for a year and a half, the company apparently went dark. It didn't run marketing, and it practically disappeared from store shelves. But then, in 2012, DeSantis started pulling in his own dream team. This included a new CEO, Jerry David, who was known as the Turnaround King, a different guy, John Fieldly, who later becomes the current CEO, and the former president of Coca-Cola. The company also sought wisdom from a marketing guru named Jack Trout.
Quite a legend in the marketing and communications space.
He's known as the founder and pioneer of these things called positioning theory and marketing warfare theory.
How was your product or your brand positioned, and then how do you defend that position? So in that sense, it is like warfare. We had the cola wars between Pepsi and Coca-Cola. In taste tests, most consumers really couldn't tell the difference between the two beverages. So really the battle lied in what they perceived about those two separate brands.
In much the same way, Celsius tried to carve its own space of perception in the market. And this was the start of the Celsius that we see today. Over the next several years, the company analyzed why it wasn't selling and found a few big things. First, they really focused on what they called drilling deep. Instead of expanding to every market possible, they chose to constrict back to 6 main areas to master. focusing on how to get customers to buy again and again. Once they mastered their strategy, then they would expand. Second, they rebranded their packaging and adjusted the way they marketed their product. For a while, this meant doubling down into weight loss. But then, as their current CEO said,
we realized we had a great, amazing energy drink on our hands.
And to make this energy drink stand out, they shifted its positioning to feel healthy, not just claim to be on the package, though they still do that in a lot of places as well.
The brand itself, in terms of tone and color and style, gets really light. This was a category that was pretty hyper masculine. Celsius went the other direction and took this to a degree that didn't feel like it was all about sort of disruption and rebellion.
Through this departure from hyper-masculine marketing, Celsius was able to achieve a 50-50 gender split among its customers, which was very unique to Celsius when compared to competitor brands. And to make buying a Celsius even more approachable, they started selling individual cans, which allowed consumers to try it out. Then, lastly, Celsius really bought into the fitness world and came to embody a healthy lifestyle, hence Live Fit.
You'll see it around your Soul Cycles, your Berries boot camps. It has become a pre-workout drink for a lot of folks.
So at the end of all of this, Celsius went from a calorie-burning functional beverage to a healthy alternative in the energy drink market. Celsius's turnaround king effectively pulled the company out of its slump. Seeing his work there was done, Jerry David leaves, and in 2017, Celsius joined the NASDAQ once again. And in 2018, John Fieldly, the CFO, got upgraded to CEO. Slowly but surely, Celsius took hold on American culture. We saw famous people holding it in an Instagram post, and meanwhile, COVID got people caring about their health, which Celsius's branding perfectly tapped into. So at this point, people really want to get their hands on a can of Celsius. But it took one thing out of their control to really break through.
In the beverage industry, if you can't get distribution, you're always going to be a very small niche brand.
To really make it big in the beverage industry, companies ultimately need to get mass distribution. And the main way to do this is linking up with a big distributor and joining their established network, which also brings several other perks that you really can't get with local distributors. But getting into one of these networks is really tough. Each distribution truck only has so much space. This is where Celsius got lucky. Before Celsius made its big moves, Bang Energy was in a very similar spot. It had a giant list of regional distributors within the Anheuser-Busch InBev network when it jumped over to Pepsi for an exclusive deal. So suddenly, a bunch of these InBev trucks had a Bang Energy-sized spot open for another player. These distribution trucks are driving to their stores regardless, so they're incentivized to fill that empty space in the truck and then on shelves, ideally with a drink in the same market segment. So, right on the heels of earning record profits in the second quarter of 2020, Celsius snatched a bunch of these spots Bang left, and Celsius's stock starts skyrocketing. Then in 2020, once again paving the way for Celsius, Bang left Pepsi. 2 years later, in 2022, Pepsi made a $550 million investment in Celsius to get a near-exclusive distribution deal with them. Through this, Celsius was able to streamline its distribution and get in a lot more places.
Once you get into the store, you also want to get on the right shelf. And that shelf space is valuable to the retailer. If you can't turn enough product, they're going to put a different product in that location. But if you're a big brand like Pepsi or Anheuser-Busch, you have a lot of clout with those folks. If I'm going to get into those fancy end caps or do anything that's going to try to get your attention for Super Bowl, they're the ones doing all of that.
So if you come to the official energy drink section of this store, Celsius only has these two spots, which are empty but one. But if you go around the corner, they have this.
When you have a big player like InBev or Pepsi, they can make those things work because the retailer knows if it doesn't work, they'll make them whole. And that's what allows some of these brands like Celsius to get to the scale they have today.
So with Pepsi, Celsius got exactly what it wanted. Now they're in tens of thousands of convenience stores, grocery stores, gyms, and health shops. This is probably around the time you felt like Celsius just came out of nowhere. From its beginnings as a functional beverage to a genre-defining energy drink, Celsius's cast of characters built a brand that now takes nearly 6% of a crowded energy drink space, which, though a low number, is third place, and $1.1 billion in sales in 2023. And Celsius continues to add more flavors and product lines with remarkable profit increases year over year. But we've also seen that fast rises don't guarantee steady success. And in January of this year, despite profit increases of 336% in Q4 of 2023, Bank of America downgraded Celsius' stock from buy to neutral, as analysts worried the company's exponential growth is dwindling. The stock corrected in response. Beyond slowing earnings, recent congressional challenges to caffeine consumption by children have raised concerns for the growing energy drink market as a whole, which is often advertised to youngsters. But exactly how much this will affect companies like Celsius is still TBD. Also, competition is always hot and ever-changing. Looking at the energy drink section of any store will prove this very easily. Companies dominating the market like Monster and Red Bull don't want to budge. For example, Monster released a zero-sugar version of their usually very sugary drink to draw in Celsius' health-conscious consumer. And Red Bull is still very far ahead. It's clear Celsius has found its momentum, and it seems like they're holding strong to their playbook. The company recently announced that within the next 2 years, it will expand its global sales and distribution to international markets, in France, Australia, and New Zealand. But when you're selling a story, you never know when people might stop buying it.